Hi, guys. I'm coming on here tonight, and it is Monday night. This light is very bright. Um, so, I just want to share a dream that I had. This dream I had on September 13th, 2022. It was a very specific dream, very symbolic. Felt more like a vision, but what I saw was supernatural. So this is what I wrote. I try to write these dreams in my phone when I first wake up so that I can capture the detail. I had a dream that the Lord has asked me to write down. I was standing in front of my mom's house. A tree my dad had planted years ago has grown higher than the house, and a single apple was hanging from the top. But this one apple was like 2 feet tall and 2 feet wide. It was also the perfect color and shape like Snow White's apple. I mean, it was red, perfect red. I was amazed. Attached to the apple was a huge green grub, and it was eating at the top of the apple. It looked exactly like the grub that I found on the first fruit tomato of my garden. I had planted a garden and I was getting these really weird, ugly grubs on my tomatoes. And my friend said I should just cut them in half. Just below the grub on the apple, you could see the large remains of its cocoon, like the shell was still sticking to the tree. So it wasn't a butterfly of any kind, it had metamorphosed into this giant superbug. My mom and I walked into the garage where my son James was working on a project, and my mom asked if he wanted to make some extra money and go kill the grub. And like me, he had no desire to deal with it or touch the grub and passed on the offer. So my mom left the garage to go hire some gardeners close by. Now it felt like no time passed, but the next scene was done when we came out of the garage. The first thing I noticed was that the entire front half of the tree had been carved and cut down. So, like from top to bottom, this tree had been cut in half, and the apple was gone. It's like this massive tree had been cut in half from top to bottom, and the half that had been cut was laid in front of the neighbor's house. I looked at my mom and said, "What happened?" She replied, "The workers found a big snake." Then I looked at the tree, and sure enough, there was a snake who stretched from the top of the tree all the way to the bottom. This snake was bound to the tree, and the branches were wrapped around him so tight that he couldn't move, like he had been living and was a part of the tree for a very long time. The workers didn't even have to tie him down because he was already bound when it was cut. And they were like the snake, they were one living off each other. The snake and the tree were had been combined. But this snake was indeed alive. I could see the head of the snake looking straight up into the sky with a look on its face that said, "Shit." And I could tell it wished it hadn't messed with the apple and hadn't brought attention to itself. Apparently, that grub had grown into the snake. About 12 feet down from this head, the tree had been cut into two pieces. So this tree was about 24 feet tall. I saw three men skinning the snake's belly area and removing large chunks of snake meat to save and use for food. There was a food shortage coming, and these workers had hit the jackpot. So large chunks of meat were being placed into bags to be dispersed to the people. At the base of the tree, more workers could be seen doing the same to the tail. This process of skinning the snake was going to take these workers a long time since he was so huge. He was at least 2 feet thick in the middle, and the workers had a lot of snake to still carve up. I said to my mom, It's okay to pay them for the time it took to cut the tree, but do not pay them for the time it takes to carve up the snake. They are going to make a fortune off the meat, and they are blessed you gave them the job. I looked back thinking the snake should be dead by now, but it was not. It still had that same look on its face, trying to figure out how to squirm away. I almost felt sorry for it, but this snake was so dangerous, and I was so thankful that it would no longer be hiding in my mom's front yard. So, uh, what does it mean? I clearly knew when I woke up that the snake represented Satan. Um, I definitely think that the grub and seeing the apple represents the beginning of time, that in the very beginning of time, when everything was perfect, that little grub, Mr. Satan himself, got in there and started messing with things. And over time, a long period of time, that um, that snake has grown from that little bitty grub. He is huge. I do believe my dream represented Satan will be caught and bound and his resources redistributed. Satan is very alive and well, working in many people in our world. Many people have chosen to actively, intentionally worship him, and he is accomplishing his goals in the world through them. We're seeing it on a massive scale, but I definitely think this vision implies the troops are coming. I do want to point out that at one point, my son was brought in. Would you like to take care of this? And my son said no and just didn't want to deal with the grub. And other workers had to be brought in. Guys, I definitely think this is more evidence supports things that I'm always saying. Um, this idea that the rapture happens and we're just raptured out of here and disappear is and come back when it's all done. That's a nice thought. That's a very but it also is not necessarily biblical. The rapture is information and the ability to get through it, and he points things out to us. Be prepared with food, how to stock up, what to look out for, um, and watching and being aware. He's telling us how to get through tribulation. But the idea that we just vanish and come back, um, kind of hard to wrap your head around. Number one, number two, from what I'm finding, that's an occultic thought that was planted into the churches just within the last few centuries. And what it does is it keeps people very passive. They don't get involved. They don't step up. They don't fight back in a way that we should be rising up. And I definitely think this dream captured that message that the son is like, no, the workers need to do that. Who's the workers? We're the workers. We are the body of Christ. So it's up to us to bind Satan, to catch him and redistribute his resources, to not allow him to sit there and eat our gardens anymore, or take advantage. Okay. So I'm trying to be careful what I say because some of the things I've said and I point out the obvious get censored. So read between the lines for those who have ears to hear. Just go ahead and take it for what it is. But definitely, God is on the move. Satan is being locked up. That tree, he could not escape. He was not getting loose from. He had so interwoven himself into this that he was fully exposed. And you guys, he's fully exposed behind the scenes. Um, he's going to be caught. He is already being caught. The last thing I want to point out in this dream is that it was very clear to me that it was going to take these workers a very long time to carve this snake and just redistribute his meat and work him out of the tree. Um, so this is going to be a process. Tribulation is a process, and judgment is a process. It's going to take a little time. So I do believe we're in tribulations. I've talked about that before. I'll be talking about it again in my next video. But for now, just be encouraged that the enemy is getting locked up and God is on the move. Okay, thanks, guys. Bye.